a une femme qui a disparu sur le Causse.
Je voulais vous poser des questions sur Evelyne Lucas. Vous l'avez peut-être croisée.
C'est ton mari? Je vais lui jeter un sort.
Arrête!
Il y a du nouveau pour la disparue?
Ouais, je suis pas au courant.
Qu'est-ce que t'as fait?
L'amour, c'est donner ce qu'on n'a pas. Es-tu prêt à donner ce que tu n'as pas?
Hello and welcome to another edition of The Living Room, brought to you by Curzon Home Cinema. If you're watching this live, you can join in the conversation via YouTube, Facebook or Twitter. Just type in hashtag Curzon Living Room. Let us know where in the country or indeed the world you're calling from, and let us know your question, and hopefully we'll be able to get through all of them. Now, today's event, based around the release of a film, All the Animals, was meant to be with director Dominik Moll and one of the lead actors, Denis Menochet. Unfortunately, Dominik's had a bit of a problem trying to get in contact with us. So we're hoping he's going to join us later, but at the moment, I am joined by Denis Menochet. Hello, Denis.
Hey, how you doing? Hello, everyone.
So tell us first of all where you're speaking from.
I'm speaking from Brittany, which is the French Cornwall, and it's at the end of the French map, the nose of the French map in the south. And yeah, I've been stuck here because I was filming in the Alps near the Italian border, and we had to stop the film. And I live in London. I could not get back home, so it's a good place to be stuck. But after a while, you know, I speak to myself, and I have an imaginary cleaning lady that I speak to because things are a bit messy around the house.
And stop there. I think we are joined by Dominik. You just need to take your sound off, Dominik. You're on mute at the moment. Or perhaps we can get someone to remove that for you. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yes, we can. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you. Bloody technology. Sorry about that.
That's okay. And let us know where you currently are at the moment.
Where I'm right now?
Yes.
I'm at home in Montreuil, near Paris, France.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us. So the film Only the Animals opened in the UK online on Friday, and it's an adaptation of Colin Neil's 2017 novel Seul les Bêtes. Could you tell me, Dominik, what it was that attracted you to adapting this novel?
Well, several things actually. Well, first of all, I thought it was a terrific story, beautifully told, and showing how the fate of 5 people who were quite loosely connected through a series of coincidences lead to a quite maybe unnecessary murder. And the way it's told is quite original because it's structured in several parts, and you have the point of views of all those 5 different characters, and so at the beginning you have a quite incomplete picture of what's going on, and with each chapter and each point of view you get to learn more about the whole story, and so there was something quite playful and nice about the construction of that story. And what I also liked were the characters and how they all struggle with they're all quite solitary and isolated, and how they struggle with that and try to overcome that and to find love. And it's actually their struggle for love that will lead to that tragedy.
This is not the first time that you've adapted a book for a film, and I'm just curious about your process. When you read the book itself, do you enjoy the book on its own and then think about the possibility of it becoming a film afterwards? Or is it the case that when you're actually in the process of reading the book, you become excited by the fact that this could possibly be something you would work on?
Well, it's a little bit of both, because when you're a filmmaker, obviously, as soon as you start reading a book and if you like it, after a while you start thinking, could that possibly be an adaptation or not? And so here it was both. I really enjoyed reading the book, and after a while I thought, there's maybe something to be done, although it wasn't completely obvious because in the book, all the chapters are told in the first person, so there are a lot of inner monologues, which I didn't want for the film. So it was also quite a challenge to adapt it, actually.
And Denis, can you talk about the moment of your involvement? Did you speak first of all with Dominik, or did you receive a script from him and read that?
No, he invited me for lunch and talked to me about the project and gave me the script. Yeah, old school.
And what was it that attracted you to the role of Michel?
I love those kind of stories with, you know, intricate stories with different characters. I really love that, and I love Dominik's cinema as well. I remember when I went to see Harry at the movie, so I was really impressed that he would think about me.
And Dominik, I'd read somewhere that you were keen to have Denis involved as a result of seeing Xavier Legrand's film, the 2017 film Custody. What was it that you saw in that?
Well, I mean, I had obviously seen Denis also in other films, but it's true that in that film he's particularly impressive, and I really love the film on the whole. I mean, not only Denis, and I thought, although if the character in Only the Animals is quite different, because the character is probably more childish in a way, I mean, more naive, and wants really to believe in something, and even if he has also a violent side, it's quite different. But I don't know, I just loved Denis' acting, and so when I was writing the screenplay, he was really the actor that I thought I need to have him for the role of Michel.
No.
Just thinking about that character from Custody, and thinking about Michel, one thing that I sort of thought, Denis, that there was a sort of comparative element, is that it's almost like you've got a series of layers with these two characters that are slowly peeled away as the narrative progresses. With regards to All the Animals and creating the character of Michel, how much of a challenge was it with the performance of having this one character that I personally felt very, very sympathetic towards initially, because I only had one perspective, and sort of holding back so much of that character?
Yeah. I mean, for Only the Animals, I always work by building the past of the character, where it comes from, and usually it changes everything. But I wanted him to be someone who doesn't plan anything, who just acts always like spontaneously, and therefore, because maybe he's stupid or maybe he's just naive, he ends up in a terrible situation. And I thought it was hilarious to do it, and I had a blast doing that.
And Dominik, just with coming back to the idea of casting, when you're in the process of writing and thinking about the film, do you often have actors in mind, or do you generally write the characters fully and then it's when you reach the casting stage that you decide on different actors?
It really depends. I mean, obviously when you write a screenplay, there are faces or names that keep popping up, or you start thinking about it. But I try, I mean, there in the writing process of this film, I know that it was really just Denis that I had in mind, and I didn't have any strong wishes for the others. So it really depends. There's no rule. I mean, there are some. I try to stay quite open, because also when you write a character, you don't necessarily know everything about him as you write along, and so you also want to have a complete picture of the character before you start thinking about the casting process. But then again, there's no rule. I mean, sometimes there's just someone obvious that pops up, and sometimes it's a longer process.
One of the surprises for me was Valerio Bruni Tedeschi, who's fantastic, also fantastic in the film. Could you talk about getting her to play the role?
Well, for instance, for her, it was really, I must say, it was really the casting director who pushed me to meet her, and I love her as an actress, but I wasn't, I couldn't completely imagine her in the part, probably because in her own films she always plays quite neurotic women who are insecure, very insecure, and here Evelyn is a quite strong woman who has strong opinions and behaves quite strongly, and so probably I didn't have enough imagination to see her in that part, and my casting director said, you have to meet her, you have to meet her, and so I met her, and I told her about my doubts. I said, look, I love you as an actress, but I'm not sure if it's gonna work, and she said, look, let's do a reading, and we just read the scenes together, and then you'll hear the words in my mouth, and this is what we did. And I thought, okay, my casting director was right. She will be great, and I really am very grateful to my casting director to have pushed me to take Valeria.
Another interesting choice, and it shows the sort of impact of certain programs or films on different cultures. Call My Agent has become quite big over in the UK, and obviously Lord Callum is one of the main actors in that, and probably in this country that's what people most know her from. So it was a surprise to see her in that role.
Yeah, I guess in France also, I mean, the main public probably knows her from that TV series, although she's been around now for quite a while in theater and in films, and she's an actress who has a lot of positive energy, and the way she just I don't know, inhabits the part she's playing is there's a lot of generosity. Actually, this is something that I enjoyed with all the actors on this film, that I found them all incredibly generous in the way they played and took hold of those characters and made something out of it, and I think this is what's so enjoyable about watching also the film and the characters.
Denis, I've got a question from Kate in London, who asks, is there something that you always look for in a role when you're choosing to be in a film?
It's the story all the time. It's the story that I want to be a part of. I cannot believe that I'm doing this job. I feel so very blessed and lucky. So yeah, it's just a story all the time, because I really want to participate in films that I would like to go see, basically.
And in terms, you were talking about the fact of building up a character. Do you tend to do a lot of research for the roles that you play?
Yeah, at least a couple of months before, 3 months. And if it's a bigger role, then maybe like more than that, because you find so many different, because people are like diamonds. You have many different facet to it, like lights and darkness and everything. And it's really interesting if you make one choice, it will come out as a very different character for you to play, like a different note, always like an instrument.
The most recent film the audiences in the UK will have seen you in is Francois Ozon's By the Grace of God. I'm assuming that would have been a role that involved an enormous amount of research, but also perhaps meeting some of the people involved in the real life story.
Yeah, lots of testimonies, and it was a tough one, because it's more afterwards what he really created a very social event in France, and then the people in the street stopping you are in the Eurostar. There was people bursting into tears, and I have to, I canceled my Instagram for a while because people were just reaching out to me, and I was not equipped to just, I could guide them and everything, but then they get angry at you, because when people have been abused, they are very fragile, and I'm very proud of this, actually, because it changed the way people see the church, and it changed the church within, which is a good thing.
Dominik, I want to come back to you about the writing process. Across your career, you've had a collaboration with Gilles Marchand. Could you talk about how that works between you?
Yeah,
Not so easy
well,
process, but
well, it's true that Gilles and me, we've known each other now for 36 years. We met in film school, and since then we've been working together a lot. And he often writes together with me the screenplays for my films, and I do collaborate on the screenplays for his films that he directs. And I don't know, we just get along very well, and we have the same kind of obsessions, and when we work together, there are no ego problems, and we are not afraid of bringing up stupid ideas, and sometimes it turns out they're not so stupid, and it's a very organic process. I mean, it's not like in the how to write a screenplay where you say, okay, you first have to pitch it, and then you have a short treatment and a long treatment, etc., etc. But we start with an idea, which can be an idea of a scene or of a beginning or of a character, and then we start to build around it. And sometimes suddenly we write dialogues, very soon. And because sometimes in the details of a dialogue, you can find a very interesting idea for how to develop the story or how the character will work. So it's a quite anarchistic process, actually, which works because we just work together well. I mean, this is how I can describe it.
Just in terms of the dialogue, once you reach the shooting stage, and obviously this is for both of you, you now have actors who are fully investing themselves in the creation of this character. Are you quite democratic with how dialogue comes out and perhaps a degree of improvisation within the film?
Yes and no. I mean, you can ask Denis after that what he thinks, but I'm not a great believer in improvisation for me as a working method. I think for other directors it can be a great way to work, but I think it's important to listen to what actors have to say, and especially if it's actors like Denis or Valerio or the others, because it's their job, and so they have to interpret those characters, and so when they say something that doesn't come out of the blue, and so you shouldn't say, "Hey, I'm the director, fuck off," and I know what's going on here, and often they're right, and sometimes, I mean, I think it's great when they bring up suggestions that you didn't necessarily expect, and then you don't have to accept them, but sometimes they're great. And I'm thinking, for instance, of the scene when the character Michel, Denis, he has just seen the girl hitchhiking near the street and on the road, and he thinks that it's his love that has finally arrived in his village, and so he's quite happy, and at the same time he doesn't want to show his wife that, and so when they arrive in the farm, in the script as was written, he storms out of the car and goes to his computer to immediately send a message to her. And Denis suggested to give his wife, before getting out of the car, to look at her and give her a kiss, as if he wanted to share his happiness with her, and also in a way kiss her goodbye, because he knows that he's going to leave her. And first I was a bit surprised, and then I thought, this is a great idea. And so Denis did that even without telling Laure Calamy, who played his wife. So she was really surprised that he did it. And I love that moment. And so I think I really think that, I mean, whether it's with actors or with the head of departments, that I really believe in dialogue and collaboration. And I think the more you trust each other and the more you exchange with each other, the better the film will be. And I think especially with the actors, it's a lot of a matter of trust, that they feel that you really look at them when they play, and you listen to them and what they have to say, and you know that they will bring the best. And so that's, I think that's a good working process.
I guess, Denis, it's that fascinating thing that to find yourself in that moment, and you have become that character.
Yeah.
The choices that you make, or the things that you think you would do.
It's how it feels. It's not intellectual. It's just, it feels like this guy is happy because his mistress just arrived, and he's so happy that he kisses his wife. Like I said, he doesn't plan anything. I found that hilarious, and I would love doing it. But to come back to improv, the script was so well written, you didn't need to improv. The only bits you could improv sometimes is just when you want a scene to have energy before action, you just go blah blah blah. You trying to improv the moment, like in a car, just for the energy of the scene, so you don't start blank. Like so, So yeah. I love my job.
If I, Ian, sorry, if I may just add, one thing I was a bit nervous about when we had written the screenplay with Gilles were all the internet chat scenes, because you might be afraid that it might be quite dry to have someone just chatting away, looking at a computer screen, and it's true that both Denis and Armand in Abidjan on the other side of the chat were so involved and so much living the moment and reading, discovering what's on the screen, that it was a real pleasure and a real joy watching it already when we were shooting it. And while we were shooting it, I told myself, okay, this is gonna work. This is great. And of course, this is something that you can't really put in a screenplay. You can only hope that it's gonna work. And then when you see it embodied and played in such a way, it's pure joy.
Let's stay with Abidjan. I've got a couple of questions here. The first is from Akanksha Awai. Did you read any anthropologist's description of what happens in Abidjan and that world?
I didn't do, academic research, but we did research on the ground, and because I was in touch with a documentary filmmaker from Abidjan who had done a documentary film on that whole scammer phenomenon, and so he had introduced me to quite a few scammers, and so I talked to them, and I was really, for me it was really important that it should be well documented and not tell things that were not true, including the things with the Marabout, with Papa Sanou, and all this relationship between those young scammers who are modern young men working with computers for their scams, and at the same time there are all those ancestral beliefs where they think that they need to have witchcraft in order for their schemes to work, and that mixture was really fascinating, and it really is like that, and it exists like that, and also the whole relation they have to money, and the immediacy of having to spend it as soon as you earn money. You don't put it aside and say, okay, I'll keep it for the future, but it's live the moment, go to the club and spend it all and show everybody that you're the richest and greatest, if at least for that evening. And then often in the early morning, they've spent everything, they've thrown all their money away, but they know that for at least a couple of days, everybody will say, wow, this was a great party, and they were the boss. and that's what's important, and because they have no real perspectives for the future, and it's all about the moment and living the moment.
We're talking about great performances. Guy Roger and Bruni is superb in the film. Could you talk about how you found him for the role?
Yeah, sure. Most of the Abidjan actors are non-professional actors, and Guy Roger, for instance, was for the first time acting, in front of a camera, and I don't think he had ever considered that this could be a job for him. And he used to be in scamming too. He knew what it was about. So that did also help, because he knew all the codes, and some of the friends around him also were in that business. And when we did the casting, we really saw a lot of young men and women, and when I saw him, it's when you do wild casting like that, it's really a lot about instinct and feeling that, okay, right now in those screen tests he's not great, but you feel that there is something, and that he has the charm and he has the wit, and that goes with the character, and then you have to work with him and push him. And also the good thing was that Denis had also scenes in Abidjan, and Denis helped him a lot, and that was also very important, and also that Guy Roger could see that acting was a real job, and that you had to work hard, and which was something I really insisted on, because and which then he really did, and he took it really seriously, and he really got into it, and so that was great.
Denis, I've got a question from Jay from Columbine in the US. What's the most difficult part of discovering who your character is with this film?
That's a good question, Jay. I don't know. I think it was all about being a dreamer on this one, having dreams, and trying to escape towards those dreams no matter what. Yeah, I think that was it.
And just in terms of representing each of these characters, Dominik, thinking about Harry and Lemming and the Monk, previous films that you've directed, you have a much more linear narrative. It's not necessarily solely from the perspective of one person, but it tends to be a through line of a main character. Here you have multiple characters, multiple narratives going on. It's not Rashomon, because that's multiple perspectives. This is actually one truth happening at the center of the narrative. But how easy was it to balance all those different characters to ensure that as an audience watching the film, we might not necessarily forget about someone, but perhaps give one character more weight than the other?
Well, probably. I mean, some people who watch the film will give more importance or more weight to one or another, depending on if they respond more to this or that character. But then, I don't know, it's mainly, you have to find the right balance when you write it, and then you also, the casting of course is important, because there the balance needs to be right too. But that's mainly, I think, a matter of instinct and of feeling, and then of constructing the thing, and then obviously also in the editing room you balance things, and there are scenes that will be kicked out, and yeah, so it's a matter of balance. But it's true that it's for the first time in a feature film that I used multiple perspective and shifts from one to the other. Although I had experienced it on television series in The Tunnel, and then also in a series I did for French-German television called Eden, and so that was also helpful.
I've got a few final questions. First of all, Joanna from Cheshire. I really love the film, and the only thing I'm left slightly mystified is Joseph's final actions. Could you perhaps either of you talk about this, or how you interpret it?
His final action of Joseph. Well, Joseph is a lonely farmer who raises sheep, and obviously he has had a quite strong and disturbed relationship with his deceased mother, and which makes it difficult for him to have a well-balanced relationship with a woman. And so in the film, he is actually more interested in having a relationship with a corpse than with a living woman. So it's a bit strange, but he gets so involved in it, and for him it's so much easier to project things on that not living body rather than on someone who will give him answers and reactions, that he completely, he's so involved in that relationship that when he has to get rid of the corpse because the police starts getting after him and he might be discovered, is that he decides to, in actually an ultimate gesture of love, to join her by throwing himself into the how do you call it, the precipice, to be joined to this dead woman in death. So this is how I explain his last gesture.
Okay, and I've got Claude from West London, and this again is to both of you, so perhaps Denis first.
Yeah.
Do you consider the film a comedy camouflaged by a touch of murder and a large helping of deceit?
I think it's hilarious. That's what I think. I love this film. I think it's so well done. I'm being biased maybe, but I think what they did with it is hilarious. I was pissing myself the whole time when I watched it. Because it's stupid.
What are your thoughts, Dominik?
My thoughts. Well, no, I mean, I wouldn't say it's all hilarious, because there are some, more serious and dramatic and tragic parts in it. But it's true that I like to put humor in things and irony, and then not to take even dramatic or tragic situations too seriously in a film, and to put some playfulness in it. And I think the way this film is constructed, and the way all those stories interact and the coincidence lead to this absurd murder, there's absurdity in it, and so this absurdity is probably also what makes it sometimes a bit comic.
It did strike me watching the film that one could see certain parallels with Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. This is a larger world, we're not in one country, but about the idea that people perhaps ignore how other people's lives play out, but also the interconnectedness of the world.
Well, that's a great compliment. I love Parasite, and yeah, it's true. I mean, people do sometimes live next to each other, or even, I mean, like in Parasite, or as in my film, some of the characters live close to each other, but then others are really living in different continents, and here they are connected and ignore it, and so it's true that it's it's something that's present in both films. That's true.
We are going to have to wrap up in a moment. For anyone who's happened upon this conversation and doesn't know, All the Animals is now available to watch on Curzon Home Cinema, as is another film starring Denis Menochet, By the Grace of God, directed by Francois Ozon, which is a film really, really worth seeing. And Denis, I gather we are going to see you at some point in time when cinemas open in the new Wes Anderson film, The French Dispatch.
Yes, yeah. As soon as the cinemas open, yeah. It was supposed to be in Cannes and released this summer, I believe. I don't know, but yeah, can't wait to see it. I haven't seen it as well.
Well, thank you both for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And just to let you know about some upcoming events happening on Curzon Home Cinema. Obviously, the Human Rights Watch Film Festival is continuing until this Friday, the 5th of June. It's a series of 9 films showing on Curzon Home Cinema, but you can also go via Facebook to the Conversations with Directors being hosted by Human Rights Watch. That's on till this Friday. Then next Monday on the 8th of June at 8:30, Jason Wood, who is the head of cinema at Home in Manchester, will be in conversation with Atta McGowan and star David Thewlis, talking about the film they worked on together, Guest of Honor. Then a week Friday on the 12th of June, Simon Bird will be talking about his film Days of Bagnall's Summer, and also in conversation with 2 of the film's actors, Earl Cave and Monica Dolan. And finally, slightly ahead, on Friday the 19th of June at 8:30, Armando Iannucci will be in conversation talking about his most recent film, The Personal Life of David Copperfield. We look forward to seeing you then, and take care all.